Hey there, this is Perch. I was lucky enough to get an amazing interview with Bryan Edward Hill. We talked about a lot of different topics, and the link to that full interview is in the description. But some people were asking for a excerpt of that video just specifically on Fallen Angels, the new title coming out with Jonathan Hickman's Dawn of X. So here's that bit. Enjoy.
I want to pick up because I know I've taken you for a long time, and I'm hoping I can get one more thing from you today.
Oh, for sure.
So hooking off of, so definitely going off the analogy, which I love, by the way, of Spielberg, and you're now working with Jonathan Hickman, and working in this Dawn of X. I understand that the book hasn't come out yet; can't talk too much about it. But Fallen Angels, tell me a little bit about kind of what drew you to this book. What can you tell me about this book to get people excited about what they're going to get?
Well, I've known Hickman for a long time. He and I met him when I had a book called Romulus. It was an Image comic book. It was a miniseries. It was 4 issues under through Top Cow with a brilliant artist named Nelson Blake II. And I went to the Image Expo, and Hickman was there with Black Monday Murders, I believe. And I'd never met him before, but, East of West and all that. Like, I was very familiar with his work, and I always liked his work. He's kind of like the combination of like the Stanley Kubrick and Terrence Malick of comics in a lot of ways. He's definitely got his own unique voice and artistry, and there's meaning behind a lot of stuff. A lot of times you can sort of peel away at something, and you can find anything in anything. But with Hickman, I think there's actually stuff that was intended to be there that you're discovering, and that's great. That's rare, I think, in popular culture now to have work that's like that. And his work is certainly worth, essays and debate and analysis. And so I met him there. He was very friendly, and I took to him immediately. And then we would trade emails every now and then, and try to find something to work on. And it would never really happen because he was busy and I was busy, and the whole deal. But when I heard he was doing the X-Men thing, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, Bryan, would you like to be, kind of part of this?" And at first, I was a little hesitant, mainly because I didn't really know what my X-Men thing would really be like. Like, it's, I like the X-Men, and I've read a lot of it, and especially some of the Jim Lee stuff from the '90s kind of reboot thing. Those were kind of my seminal things. I love the cartoon and the rest of it. But I felt like so many of the things I would engage have been engaged already by great writers. And I didn't know what I'd be doing if I don't want to repeat other work and be lesser than that previous work. But then Hickman was like, no, we're not doing those same paradigms anymore. We're going to change some things up. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting to me now. Because now I can see like a space to work in, and I was able to read his House of X stuff. It was in process, but I was able to get a little bit of it, and was very impressed by it. And then we just started talking characters, and I kind of saw what was going on. I was like, well, what's going on with Kwannon? And they were like, "Oh, we hadn't really thought about it." And and I always, Psylocke was one of those characters. When I read the comics, I was probably projecting more characterization onto her than was actually in the book.
I've done that many times. I understand.
Has it ever happened where you're like, you realize that it's all in your head, like it's just total head fiction, but you have this rich understanding of who they are as a character, And I'm like, well, if Elizabeth Braddock has returned, I remember hearing about that initially, like the return of Elizabeth Braddock, and I'm like, what happens to Kwannon? Because she can't just be like a coat that gets put into the closet. Like, that's an interesting character. So when that character was available to work with, I was like, oh, now I'm really interested. So what Fallen Angels really is it's a story about how warriors deal with the enemy that is peace. It's a story about what purpose does a warrior have in a utopia. And it's also a story about what happens in the vacuum left by the absence of evolution. And it's those big ideas kind of funneled through what I believe is an intimate and very emotional story about Kwannon, Psylocke, revenge, figuring out where she belongs, not only in Krakoa, but also post the experience of not being herself.
Yeah.
And it's a story about kind of rediscovering your identity, reconciling with your history, and paving the way to the future. And Laura and Kid Cable, as he's called, factor into this because these are all characters that have almost a base level of aggression kind of woven through them. They are characters that need war in some way, and readers can expect to see how they react to this vision of Krakoa and this promise of utopia. And so the Fallen Angels title is, yes, it's a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the previous series, but I wouldn't look for lobsters in the book.
It didn't sound like it.
But it's so in addition to being like a hey, wink, wink at that, when you think about Fallen Angels, you think about Lucifer.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about Lucifer, we think about an angel who was not satisfied with the status quo of heaven itself.
Right.
And it's about those that are not satisfied with heaven. That's really what that book is about.
That sounds incredible. And I like the dynamic of the pairing because you got three characters who are, for lack of a better word, their legacy. There was a legacy character, and then they took the identity. You had Teen Cable, which is a new iteration of the Cable we knew for a long time. You have Kwannon, who is, of course, this other version, if you will. And then you have X-23. You have Laura, who had a brief stint as Wolverine, but all of them have had some kind of, I would say, struggle of acceptance in some cases by fans who like the character. There's a dynamic there. So you bring them together, and with the backdrop that you're describing, that sounds absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I like the misfit characters. I like the characters that are a little punk rock, a little hip hop. They play the music a little too loud. It's kind of been my relationship to comics, and I really do appreciate Marvel and Hickman and really all of the other writers giving me the space to do this kind of story, because I do think the book is somewhat unique in terms of the lineup because of the intimacy of the narrative.
Yeah.
And just kind of the way we're approaching it. And Simon, the artist, is doing some really fantastic visual work. And readers can, see some of my Frank Miller influences in the book. Electro Assassin is one of my favorite works.
Okay.
And I don't go to that level of abstraction that book goes to, but some of that visceral, sort of poetic storytelling, I think we employ a little bit in this book. And I'm excited for people to see it, because I think they're going to see a different side to how I approach storytelling, but there is a continuity, I think, of intensity and characterization that sort of permeates all of my work.
No, that sounds great. I mean, the whole Hickman and his House of X, Powers of X, this lineup, I think people were expecting good things, but there was a little bit, and not to go too deep into it, it caught people a bit by surprise. I mean, I haven't seen an environment like this that have been created with these comics in a long time, where there's a very anxious what's going to happen next week kind of feel. And so the anticipation, I think Hickman just posted something that the orders for the last issue are exceeding the first issue, and that's definitely what you see in the stores. So a lot of attention on this, and I'm glad you're part of it. I was really excited when you were announced.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, it really is a moment for comics, and I can understand it, because, to be frank, I was a person that would occasionally want to buy an X-Men comic and not know what to buy, or how to get started, or, it felt like the continuity was so deep that I was absolutely lost. So to have this broadsword event come in and tell people, you can start here,
Yeah.
You know, you can start here, and we're gonna do, and you're not gonna miss anything because we're doing major paradigm shifts, and you know, and I think that's a great way to get people reinvested into these characters. Again, so I'm glad to see all the excitement there. And, you know, all the books are really funky and cool. You know, like Teeny's book is cool, and Jerry Duggan's Marauder's book is cool. You know, we're all kind of on the album, you know, in a different way. You know, but yeah, it's just sort of neat to be a small part of this thing and watch it kind of all unfold. And I've been so grateful to all of the Psylocke fans out there who have been throwing me so much support. Because they as well did not want to see Kwannon get lost, you know, in the shuffle of things. So in a lot of ways, this book is a love letter to them and maybe Olivia Munn.
I can't.
I mean, you know, I
hear you.
I'm just saying it.
There are worse letters to write. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, you know, if a copy winds up in her hands and she likes it, that's positive. It's good for the culture.
All right, so we're definitely going to have a picture of you with Olivia Munn at some point holding the book in the next few months. So
for sure. You know, I met her before. She's actually like super cool. Like she's definitely. I was in a lobby once, and I was going into a meeting, and I guess she was meeting with somebody more important than I was meeting, and she came in, and I was like, I think that's Olivia Munn. And I'm like, okay. I'm just sitting there, like, I don't want to say anything. She's going to be really mean and whatever. And I was in front of a magazine that she wanted to look at, and she was like, hey, can I look at the magazine? And I heard her voice. I knew it was Olivia Munn. And I was like, yeah, you're Olivia Munn, aren't you? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be weird, but I was just trying to figure it out. And she, like, was totally cool. And we had a conversation about like G4 and a bunch of other stuff, and comic books, and you know, she's a nerd. She reads and stuff. So she was totally dope. So I can't say enough good things about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear.